Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy, invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy, building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want. Episode 3.
Hi, and welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Today, we have the great pleasure of talking specifically with Debbie Owen, one of our Mighty Married Moms, and finding out a little bit more about what she does, what her passions are, and what brought her to this, where she's at today. So, Debbie, tell us about you, where we can find you.
Sure.
What your process was.
Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to have an opportunity to talk with my wonderful colleagues, Wendy and Linda, and to share with all of you, too, as well. My name is Debbie Owen, or actually, if you can find me on Twitter at Deborah C. Owen, and my website is youcanraisegreatkids.com. And my background is I spent the last 11 years as a public school library teacher, most of that time at the high school level, although I also taught at elementary and at middle school. And before that, I had my first master's degree actually in choral conducting, and I'm still working as a as a semi-professional musician. I sing with some choruses in Boston, and I direct a church choir out here in the suburbs, and so that's part of my passion about who I am and what I love. And I've always loved working with kids and adults in music as well, so that's been going on for years and years. And when our youngest, so our children now are 18 and 21 and 24. So 2 in college and 1 in the Navy. And when our youngest, who's now 18, was 4 years old, I decided I needed to go back to school. It was very difficult to find a teaching job. I wanted to direct a high school or a college chorus. And, there aren't that many of those available. There's one high school per town or less, actually, or fewer. And so it was just kind of hard to find the right position at the right time. We weren't ready to move. And so when Christian was 4, I decided to go back to school and get a library degree. And so that took me a few years to work on that, and I did. And then I started working in public schools and love working with the kids. And I don't know how I ended up doing this. I guess I'm kind of a nerd. Aren't most teachers nerds? We joked about that. We're all kind of nerdy, but I love research. I love reading. I love writing. I love finding stuff out. I find research is like a treasure hunt. You find one little piece of the puzzle, and then you follow the breadcrumbs to get to the next piece. You look in the references at the end, and that leads you to someplace else. And it's just really, really fun. I love that stuff. And so I tried really hard to share that passion with the kids. And there were kids who got it. But the hard part for me was I saw a lot of kids who were really struggling. And some of it was struggling academically, but some of it was really just personal struggles. They didn't relate well to their peers. They didn't relate well to their teachers. They didn't relate well to the parents that they had, and I got to a point where I was just like, I don't have enough of an impact as a library teacher, and I didn't see myself in an English classroom or a history classroom. That wasn't really what I was called to do either. So the long and the short of it is, I finally decided that the best way to help kids be healthy and successful and happy was to empower their parents to be successful and strategic parents, because we all know that the studies show that kids are most successful if they come from a happy, healthy home. There are certainly plenty of stories of resilient kids who come from very stressful, dysfunctional homes who are able to, get out there and change the world. That happens, absolutely. But your kids have a much better chance of being successful and happy if they come from a stable home environment, whether that be a home environment with one parent or 2 parents or a mixed family. But if they know that the parents who are there love them unconditionally, support them, give them all of the services and the support that they need, then those kids are much more likely to be healthy and happy and successful. And so...
what do you mean by successful?
Well, that's
making a lot of money?
That's a good question. That changes from one person to another. I mean, successful for a kid would be be happy to go to school, relate well to their peers, understand that they're there to do a job, which is to learn, and younger kids learning a lot of that is play, right? But older kids, their job is to go into school and learn and get what they need to out of their classes so that they're prepared to find a job and contribute to society when they graduate. I mean, that's really, and don't we all want that for our kids? We want them to be healthy, happy contributors of society. You know, that's something my mother said to me. She said, I just want you kids to grow up and contribute and be happy. And I think that's what we really want for our kids. So maybe that's a good definition of success.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, as a parent, that's what we want for our children.
And you don't mean SATs in the 800s by success?
No, I do not. No. And yet that's a good
what a nice,
question.
that lit you up. Tell me more about what you made you smiling about there.
Just that there are a lot of parents who really get into what their kids' scores are, what their kids' grades are, and yes, that's an important part of the equation. But not every kid is. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not a student per se. You know, maybe they have other gifts.
Right.
And as parents, we're called on to help our kids find what their gifts are. Maybe it's not in the math classroom, in the English classroom, in the biology classroom. Maybe it's in music. Maybe it's in dance. Maybe it's just in the way they relate to their peers. Maybe they're a great peer leader, and giving them the opportunity to find out where their gifts and talents are, where their strengths are, so that they can feel like they are growing and contributing. Because those are some of the human needs that we have, right? Growth and contribution, and we want to give our kids the opportunity for growth and contribution.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, you know, I have always thought, you know, the love between a parent and child is the most difficult and most daring, really, to bring kids into the world. You are really simply the vessel, right? And then they're going to come out and they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And so you, as a parent, you have to support them in what they want. And help them, like you said, be happy, productive kids. So tell us a little bit about how a coach can help parents facilitate that. Because I know I see parents who want their kids to fit into this box, or you know, get 800s on their SATs, or be, I don't know, whatever it is that they think is successful, but may or may not be right for the kid. And I don't know if that's where some of the conflict comes from, or what are your experiences?
There's conflict comes from a lot of different places. First of all, there's going to be one type of conflict between a mother and a daughter, and another type of conflict between a father and a daughter, and between a mother and a son, and a father and a son, and they're all different. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, I'm not going to get into it in depth right here, but just in general. The daughter sees herself as very similar to the mom, and the son sees himself as not similar to the mom. And so there's a little bit of conflict between the mother and the daughter. There just is. That happens in many, many families, and there are ways you can avoid that. And yet at the same time, even though a mother and a son may get along really well, you want your son to be able to have a positive relationship with a male figure as well. And you want your daughter to have a positive relationship with a male figure. So, I mean, there are all these dynamics that come into play there as well. But as far as conflict goes, and a coach, actually, let me back up just a little bit. So a lot of people don't even know that a parent coach exists. It's not something that we're as familiar with.
True. Yeah.
You know, we've heard of business coaches, we've heard of life coaches, but a lot of people have never heard of a parenting coach or a family coach. And I don't really care. I call myself a parent coach, but really I'm a family coach. You know, I want to help families grow and have great relationships. And the whole point of a parent coach or family coach is to empower the parents with the strategies and the skills and the emotional capacity to remain in charge of themselves. Because I'll be perfectly honest, when a parent comes to me and says, fix my kid, most of the time, the real issue is the parents. And it's not to say that kids don't have issues, because a lot of them do.
Right.
You know, whether it's a learning issue or if it's, you know, a big problem is kids just don't know how to solve problems yet. And so it's our job to teach them how to solve problems. So those are their issues. But honestly, most of the time, if a kid's having serious issues, the parent needs to take a look in the mirror and say, what can I do to create the kind of environment where my child can flourish? And what I teach people is there's a lot that's going on in your brain, and there's reacting and there's responding. Reacting comes from, they're two totally different things. Reacting comes from the amygdala part of your brain, which is the fight or flight. It's the survival part of your brain.
Very primitive.
Very primitive. And it sees everything as a potential threat. And so if you're talking to a kid and the kid puts their hands on their hips and says to you, I don't have to, you can't make me, your initial reaction in your brain is, this is a threat. I'm in charge. I need to take charge. And so...
And overpower.
Yes,
right?
absolutely, overpower. And so what the parent will end up doing is reacting and saying, yes, I can. I'm the parent. You have to do what I tell you to do. And so that creates the conflict right there. What I teach parents to do instead is to control their own emotions, or manage is probably a better word. Manage their emotions, but my 3 C's all work together. So manage your own emotions. Understand that you are about to react, and instead of allowing that primitive part of your brain to take over, with intention and thought, choose to let the responsive part of your brain, the intellectual part, the prefrontal cortex part of your brain, the intellectual, the thinking part. And the best way to do that is to change your state. And we've talked about this as we've gotten ready for this podcast. If you change your state, instead of going like this, if you take a couple of deep breaths and calm yourself down and purposely relax your jaw, see you're practicing, unclench your fists, let it go, and then you say to your child, I see that you're home past curfew tonight. I'm glad that you're home safe. We will discuss this tomorrow. Go to bed. And that's the end of it. At that moment in time, that's the end of it. Because if you start pointing your finger, wagging your finger at your child, saying, where were you? Why weren't you home? I was so worried. It's all about you. It's not about wondering what's going on with the kid. Why were they late? What were they thinking? And that gets or not. That's a whole other issue. The prefrontal cortex of our brains do not actually finish maturing. Females until around age 25, and males even sometimes a little bit later. So they often aren't thinking. They are not capable of thinking.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still expect them to go through the process of learning how to think.
Right.
So anyway, the long and the short of it is I empower parents to figure out that they are overreacting and they should respond with prepared thought first, by calming themselves down, and then once everybody's able to sit down calmly and talk through issues, you will find that you get along much better with your child, and you will find out that, somebody was going to drive her home and she realized that he was drinking and it wasn't a good idea, and so she had to wait for somebody else. Or maybe she did feel like pushing your buttons that night and decide to come home late. Well, what is it about this relationship that's causing her to want to push your buttons?
Right.
And let's take an analysis of that. And this is where a parent coach can be very helpful to say, we're having this constant conflict. What can we do to solve this problem? And so that goes back to your question earlier, and that's what a parent coach can do. Parent coach is somebody who empowers the parent with the right skills and strategies so that they can raise happy, healthy kids. And I don't do it for you. I help you do it yourself. Right. And the other thing is I'll talk to kids too. I work with kids. I understand how kids think a lot, maybe not always, but better than a lot of other adults, because I have worked with high school kids for a long time, and I'm a voracious reader, being a librarian, and I've taken tons of courses. I'm a certified parent and life coach, so I've gone through all of these. I'm certified as a public school teacher in a couple of different areas. I've got national board certification as teaching excellence, and so I have a background, and I can help families sort out what their conflicts are and get back on the same page and start over again. Just because you have a 16-year-old and you're in conflict all the time doesn't mean it's over. We can definitely we can straighten that out, for generally speaking.
Do you think, I used to teach high school as well. I used to be a sculpture teacher, and it seems like, too, that it's natural for teenagers to not want to listen to their parents, because it's a process of independence, right? They need to become independent. So do you think that third party, kind of helps them to say, oh, well, Debbie, the coach, is saying just what my mom said to me. And so it's a kind of reaffirming what maybe the mom or dad is trying to teach the kid, and maybe reaffirming that, listening to your child. I know Clint Eastwood said at one time, what you put out, you get back. Kind of simple, right?
Yeah,
you put point, and that's what you get back, right? You put out conflict, you get back conflict. If you stay calm, you're more likely to get a different response.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've read so many stories, and I've seen it over and over again. If you put out anxiety and frustration and anger, that's exactly what you're going to get back.
Right.
You know, you put it out there and that energy bounces back to you.
Yes.
So if you want to calm your child down, first calm yourself and put out a calm, unstressed face, even if you have to fake it. Okay, you can be in knots inside, but that doesn't, you know, don't let your kids see that. Be a calm person. One of my mentors calls it robotic mindfulness, okay? That's Susan Epstein, who is one of our guests coming up. And she talks about robotic mindfulness, where you imagine your favorite robot, and you imagine how they have no facial expression at all, and you just talk to your child very calmly in a robotic voice. And even if they're screaming at you, you say to your child, that is not acceptable. You're being rude to me. I don't like it. Please stop. And you just repeat that. When your child is still in your face, you say, please do not be rude to me. Please stop. And you just keep repeating it like a robot, like a robot, like a robot. By the end of the week, you will have a different relationship with that child. You have to stick with it. You can't let go.
Right.
But
it's sort of like another way of like, I think of not Zen necessarily, but Buddhism, or like a step back. Like don't engage and don't get in the dog fight, but kind of step back a little bit. And that other dog is fighting by themselves. And if they get bored, I may not be wording it exactly right, but there's just something about distancing oneself from the fray that really helps. And that is what we pay our parents to do, right? Somebody has to be the adult in the relationship. And what I'm hearing too about coaching is, you know, I've kind of come to this realization myself very recently. Tiger Woods has or had a coach.
Yes.
Derek Jeter has a coach. Many athletes today have coaches, and we're trying to hit one out of the park when we're parents.
Yeah.
We're trying to hit it out of the park, and if we have a pretty good swing, or we have a pretty good track record with, you know, catching the ball, or whatever the analogy is that you want to say, but we could learn to do it better. Or that's great, you're doing great, Wendy, but if you just turn a little bit to the right, you know, you're going to get it better, or whatever. That's what a parent coach can do. Is I hear your goals, parent. They're not going to be maybe the same goals that you and your husband have for raising a family, but you're going to listen as a really qualified person, listen to the goals that they have, and say, okay, here are my suggestions about how to really aim.
Make a slight shift. Make a slight shift.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a shift in the words that you choose. Maybe it's a shift in your mental attitude. Maybe it's a shift in your emotions, or, you know, whatever it might be. But if we learn how to make some of these small shifts, and we get those shifts from coaching, then we're able to change the results that we get.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the saying? You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I mean, it just doesn't happen. If you've been yelling at your kids for 15 years and you keep yelling, you're not going to have different results. You just aren't. You know, if you want to change the relationship that you have with your child, you need to change the way you relate to your child. So my role as a parent coach is to help parents figure out, what do I need to do? How do I shift? How do I change how I relate to my child in order to get different results?
So do you have long-term engagements, or I'm sorry, I'm just curious, how do you do it? How do you?
So I work with families one-on-one, or 2-to-1 preferably. I prefer to work with both the parents if at all possible. And I'll also work with kids if that seems like an appropriate thing to do. But mostly I work with parents. I'm also getting ready to start a kind of a hybrid coaching program where I'll be teaching a lot of these tools and resources kind of in a group class online, like on a phone call, where everybody comes in together. Actually, probably on a webinar is what I'll probably do, so you can see slides if you want. And then because some families will feel uncomfortable having like a Q&A in front of a group, even though it's a group you can't see, I will also have some individual coaching sessions with people too. So those are the different models that I have, either kind of a hybrid group and individual, as well as just individual stuff if you've got some things you need to get to.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I think our time is...
we're done.
Yep, it's coming to an end. So again, tell us where we can find you.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me online at youcanraisegreatkids.com, and I've got some tons of resources there. I have a gift for you there. I also have a gift for you if you go to mightymarriedmoms.com. Get the ABCD method of calm parenting in the heat of the moment. So I encourage you to go check that out as well.
Yeah, I think everyone could use a parent coach. That's great.
Good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited for all of our upcoming episodes as well, and have a fabulous day.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community,
where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.